Hello.
Hey.
There we go.
Hold on a second. Oh boy. Close that.
So is Amanda aware that we're having a meeting tonight, or?
I think so. I saw her.
I didn't see an announcement in the channel. Yeah. If you want to do that. I also saw that you were in here. See, it's like 45 minutes. You're working on your. Well, I don't know. You said you're working on something.
I guess I didn't say it explicitly in that post, but yeah. I'm sorting through how to organize the project basically. I'll share my screen here. Okay. Whoops. Yeah, I'll do this. I'm trying a different mouse. That's always an adventure. I'm kind of going through this here. I'd like to spend a good chunk of tonight also kind of like we're going through this stuff again and then just going through this, and I'm setting up some things here. I've just been streamlining a bunch of things really, so
yeah,
sorting out that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Did you get any emails about the GSOC yet?
Yeah, basically just that I got 4 emails saying, "Oh, congratulations, you're going to be a mentor for like 4 different projects."
Yeah, well, 4 different people. So yeah, I think we got everyone who had a pretty good application. We only got 1 per project in each orthogonal web project, and then we got 2 for the GNNs. And it's pretty much everyone I thought would get like the top spots. So,
okay.
So it's good. Yeah.
And that's what I thought it was. It looked like 1 for, so it's 1 for each of the orthogonals.
Yes.
And then 2 for the Evo. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Hi, Amanda.
Hey.
How are you guys?
All right.
Pretty good. I'm my biggest update is I'm like officially telling people now that I'm gonna like go to grad school and do the UCSD data science masters.
Awesome.
So
congrats.
Kind of started. Yeah, thank you. It's been a long time and a lot of different choices. I think it'll be good. I really hope I'll do it either way, but like I don't plan on moving to San Diego because it's online as it stands. Okay. However, and maybe this is even something for more so next year than this semester potentially, but if I can work in like a Coxire psych lab there while I'm in the master's program, that would be that's kind of why UCSD has been basically my top choice outside of the Stanford Symbolic Systems master. So we'll see. There's some other things I'm kind of waiting to hear back from, but like I don't know. I'm kind of comfortable saying this now. I did like early decision for it, and I'm happy I did that because I don't mind finding out now and not having to worry about stuff later, and being able to build around it too. Like also on a personal note, well, even more personal note, I really want to take this summer to recuperate more. And yeah, I know grad school is always tough, and I'm always doing a bunch of stuff anyways. But I saw a doctor recently, and I'm in good shape and all that stuff. But just like, I think I don't see myself scaling back anything that we're doing here, so like no concerns about that. But I just want to like take a little better care of my health and get more sleep.
Yeah.
Mostly getting more sleep. Straight up sleep would probably solve everything for me.
Yeah.
But just all of that and so I might do like I'm always doing Google Summer Code. I might do neuromatch stuff because I think it'd be decent training for me. But I'm okay. Like it alleviates a lot of stress knowing that I can start a program in the fall, in the sense of trying to cram into a bunch of stuff in the summer to get more this or more that. So that's great, and I feel like I have the opportunity to do that. So that's kind of like my personal outlook for things. I don't see like anything affecting Cognition futures in particular, because that's like my out of all the things that I have, I think it's my most like my baby, my biggest baby of them all.
Biggest baby.
So I don't see any changes here, but like I've considered like if I do like for next fall and stuff like that, like I'm okay with sort of the periodic society ethics tech team stuff, but I think just sort of a scaling back that I'm anticipating on like stuff and Plottress is kind of in a standstill right now, and that may change, but there's sort of this, you know, there's going to be some constraints to work around, but also just trying to be a little more sustainable on myself. Like for a while I was working like multiple jobs and I'm kind of glad that stopped, and I'm glad I'm in okay shape now too in general, but like I was burning the candle at like both ends and then in the middle at the same time in some ways, and I think I'm kind of want to be a little bit more balanced than that, mostly really just in my own choices. So that's kind of my personal update. So
yeah, there's always a tendency to do that, like if you're trying to do it all, and sometimes you have to prioritize things, and it's tough, but
yeah. So you have to like I think it's here. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Yeah, but I feel good. I feel like things are kind of aligning nicely in the sense of, also, I'm not ready to show the version of it. I did submit a version of the FQXI question about doing science differently.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And I'm okay with it. But like, I think I'm going to turn it straight up into a preprint. And I kind of want to start, Bradley, I might ask your advice. I might do like an OSI or OSF. I always forget the mixed up.
Yeah.
I might put this in this thing like adjacent to the frontier map, because they're related in a lot of ways. And I realized like part of why the FQXI question was appealing, because it's like, how do you do the science differently? And I actually looked at the prompt again before I committed to like, okay, I'm just going to put this in paper and it's going to be, like 80% what I want it to be, but I'm just going to use the deadline to push me to do it. When I looked at the prompt, I was like, yeah, like this is exactly what's on my mind. A lot of my friends like that I'm talking about, like the questions, the way it structured the prompt about like being sort of culturally aware, but also like methodologically aware. And I think I really want to, I think fully fleshing that out for me and putting into a very simple, not even a paper, but like it's just an essay, like it's like a 4 or 5 page essay, and it distills a lot of thoughts, and it's sort of a precursor to some other thing I really want to write in the future. So that was cool, but I think that's like it for all of my updates. So any other updates from you all? How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, doing okay.
Bradley and I were talking a little bit about like Google's homework code stuff when we got in, but outside of that, it's mostly been, I think, what you've seen, Amanda, because I appreciate you writing out like this stuff. And I kind of want to go through this. I say to Bradley, I want to kind of go through this stuff and go through kind of that discussion again and distill it into some action points. I was going to do certain things here, but then I figured let's talk about it and either do it here or like I'll be really explicit so that way we can make it happen. One thing I'll show quickly that has happened is now if you go to this page and you start anything new, and I thought it was only going to be here, but it's cool because it can be here too. The default should now at least be, I mean, the template name's kind of silly, I think, but it should show this here each time. And I might change this title, but I was kind of thinking what other templates we want to make and for like changing. Is that going to actually let me change it? Can I edit this? Yeah, here we go. There you go. You have to see this like banner on top of editing a template. Yeah. Otherwise, you're not actually a template, and it's a little confusing sometimes. So, we can talk about this now or go into other stuff. But is there anything else you want on a bibliography template, Amanda? Because I know you had some things about that specifically. Besides just that.
So those three questions are like, how does this text relate to those three like subsets of the project? But we could think of questions outside of that if we wanted to. I don't know. I think those are the big ones that like every bibliography entry would kind of have in common. Like if it's not relevant to any of that, it's kind of like, why are we putting it in the annotated bibliography? But I might be not thinking of something.
Okay, that's fine for now. And like one thing, just as a preview, I think we can take our time to get there. I do kind of want to like put things. I do want to get to a place where either we're talking about projects directly, or like sort of crafting projects, and that kind of stems perhaps to like this stuff here, or like project one as the neurophenomenal embodiment thing. Where did it go? Embodied neurophenomenology, but also like I kind of want to. I might just sort of like I'll say organize this a little bit, but I'm not quite happy with it yet. But I think there's something to basically get to. This one I'm looking for. Something that would fit with this, which is like let's sort of have a space in Notion where we kind of explicitly write out, even though it's just copying exactly what Amanda wrote in her diagrams into this, and saying, here's what it like the facets of the project are.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding you right, that would take like 2 seconds, because in the more recent version of the outline, I listed like the outputs that would fall under each category, and they're kind of self-explanatory. And we could add a bit more of a description, but I think that could be really quick, just to list the 3 or I guess 4 projects, and then the outputs that fall under each category.
Yeah, I think that's not a heavy lift at all, thankfully.
And then that I'm still working on. I hopefully next week I'll have an updated version of that page that's less messy, the embodied neurophenomenology, which I don't know how much I care for that title. I think it maybe was good for EI, but that's maybe I'll have a better title next week too.
Here, all right. This is basically what I was trying to get at. Let us.
Is it just a better title? Oh, Amanda, is it just a better title, or are you going to change the content?
No, I think the core content is right, and I like the way that I framed the project in relation to the bigger methods project. I don't know if I want to stick with the word neurophenomenology, because the whole point is you don't have to focus on the neuro. And I know Varela addresses that, but I've seen a few other authors use physiophenomenology, which is interesting. And then embodied can mean so many different things. So maybe a more descriptive term there. But the concept would be the same.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not going to fill this out right now, but just to kind of set up some things here, because I think there'll be a better way to go through all this stuff. But I wanted to mostly just find this and not lose it and sort out that stuff. Yeah, so I guess I'm for that. Maybe I'll make like specific projects just for now. I don't know what to call these things, sub-projects. I'll figure out the terminology later, but
in my personal notes, I use the word manifestations. Just a little goofy, but I think that's descriptive.
Like project like this being one, a manifestation for you?
Yeah, for like how that relates to the bigger project, because it's like there are parts of the embodied neurophenomenology project that like fall under all four of those categories. I think it's like an instantiation of the project. I don't know.
Well, right, and I feel like maybe one thing to think about is like, is a project in an ongoing sense, or is it like a deliverable outcome? And how do we categorize all of that? Because there should also probably be, I mean, not here in this sidebar, but just for my own notes, like stuff there, you know, kind of that should be something, an easy identifiable collection of stuff. And it's not hard to do. I could just pull the database from our databases and have it tagged with this thing, but yeah. To that end, okay, I think this is all good stuff so far. And I don't think anybody else cared to say too much there. So like, what did we go over last time? Last time, I don't know how many of these are really amazing, but there was sort of deposit, interpret, gather. There was the sort of potential projects brainstorm, which are written better elsewhere. We have this view. We had this. Oh, that's right, the glossary. I needed to put that in someplace. That was a thing I wanted to do. Here we go. Because that's like, we need, and I also like how there were sort of two glossaries. Um, that's important there, yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, with the pyramid which we know and love. This is Bradley's helpful diagram. Yeah. Okay. So we went through that. What did this say? A coherent theory that makes empirical prediction has good answers to the important questions and is well situated in broader philosophical context and has thousands
of good studies supporting it.
Absolutely.
That's the tip of the pyramid.
Okay. I don't understand. I kind of should probably move this like, yay. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna write so I don't forget that. Yeah, that's very loose diagram for the time being. Great. So, and I also like this talk about like perceptual points of perceptual contact that came up also in like, I seem to have screwed all these up by now. Well, like I was going to look at potential papers to write and also the active questions, because I feel like for these 2 pages, actually, this is supposed to be over here. Yeah, right. For these 2 pages, I do think they're like they're not redundant necessarily. Like I do want to have active questions and also these potential papers to write, or like potential outputs or something. But I'm curious if we have any thoughts about like, I can see ways of organizing these things that are like I can in terms of how to put them in Notion. I think there are ways that like these could become essentially like these could become a database where, and I don't know if this is what you were getting at when you were talking about some of this stuff here, Amanda, like the interlinking stuff. But like these questions could each be essentially like tabs in a database. Like it could become, for example, this could be like question number 1 or something. I don't know. And like that could be like the stub for it, or like the longer title could be that, and it could be a database similar to this, and then the question 1 would be here, and then all these sort of, you know, this view, you know, could be part of that, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. I think that's definitely a good way to accomplish the goal that I tried to explain, because it's easy to link. It would be easy to link the questions to the notes and the notes to the questions if the question has its own page.
Yeah, and like these are the active questions too. I don't know why. I'm not sure why this might go into like weird dark room stuff. Sorry. I think that makes sense for the questions in particular. For this page, and again, keep in mind, like in my view, I have a, I could, and I probably will, like we, not just me necessarily, but like all of this will probably be reconfigured to some extent. So I guess my question here is like, do we have any sense right now of, I like this idea where right now we have this sort of generic list that isn't necessarily structured into a database per se. And then there's sort of this commentary. I made a little like, I might, every time we come back to this page, I might add more here or whatever. I don't know how to really set that up yet, but like, do we want to change how we're talking about quote unquote potential papers to write or outputs to make, or is this list okay for the time being? Any feelings about that? Not just like what to do in Notion, but also like, is that serving a purpose? It's serving a purpose clearly by having a space for us to think about these. It's kind of like we're letting these sort of collection of thoughts distill into, something that could be worked on or refined. That sure, and it ties back to this, of course. But man, maybe that will be the process of like, the questions are the questions, but ultimately we put them. Maybe how we can do it is like we try to have them I don't know, congeal or form into these like outputs as they come up. But the outputs aren't necessarily the same thing as, the questions themselves per se. How do we feel about that?
I kind of feel like the pages are redundant. Like I know that like those are two different things. Like what are the questions we're going to answer, and then like maybe what no, I don't know. I feel like the potential papers to write are answers to questions. So the particular things we have in there right now aren't redundant, and they're kind of, they look a bit different, but ultimately the potential papers will be answers to questions, and the active questions will be significant enough that they are worth writing a little bit about. So it doesn't have to be like, potential, manuscripts, potential preprints. It's just like potential pieces of writing.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that was going to be sort of one of my like counter arguments ahead. To that end, maybe the way to do this is to create a structure. Well, whoops, that's the wrong thing. Create a view of, I don't know what to call it yet. Either act like one of these things will be the answer to your question here. I don't know if we're going to call it the active questions, or we're going to call it. I'm kind of leaning towards the active questions, and like making the questions be the potential papers to write, essentially, or like at least letting that dictate a bit there. And then this, in theory, is fine, but like, I think it's nice to have a place of like brainstorming ideas that are totally, not bounded in any way, like very blue sky stuff.
I see.
But I think that maybe it could be separate. Like I do want to get to a place where it's like, at least how I'm interpreting the questions. Like we have these, like, what's the function of these things that are actually driving what we're trying to fill out? And I think that's what we want to isolate. Does that sound right?
Yeah, but I think also some of the active, like the active questions can also be a little tangential. We just like think they're interesting. Even if we don't plan on, like, even if one falls maybe lower on the priority list, I think it's still good to note it. So
that's a question about priority that I'm not that what you raised it up there, but like priority would be interesting to think about in this light. Yeah. Okay. This, and in one sense, I almost feel like I have a few more on my end as like wearing my project manager hat. How to organize the Notion is, I was almost like I have a few more questions when I started, but it's important to have them for there.
I think that we don't need a database. I think that just like one page with the table of contents and with like nice headings that kind of gives some structure to the different categories that the questions might fall under. I think that could be good enough.
Okay.
And then we just have to be good about linking things. So, so like what got me started thinking about this is in the gesture of awareness, they use the term like intuitive knowledge or something, just real quick, and they don't say much more. So then I was like, well, what exactly does that mean? I know they talked about it in the book version of gesture of awareness. But so I just like jotted it down. It's like, what does this mean here? And then I wanted to like tag active questions. So I wanted this like two-way connection where like that there's just like this connection between the notes where the question arose, the context for the question, and then so you can see the question from the notes and the notes from the question in Notion.
Yeah, and so to that end, well, I think the two solutions of Notion that come to my mind are, one, tagging outright would require a database entry. There'll have to be something to tag. The only thing I could think about besides that would be like copying and pasting the block of text. Whoops, my mouse is going crazy here.
Oh yeah, like I did with the template thing.
Right, which is cool, but
no, that's not exactly, because it doesn't have to say the same thing on both pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like instead of linking to active questions, then you click there and it's this whole long list. You want to click to the specific question. Maybe.
I'm going to play around with that a bit. Like I think there's a tenable solution where these are easily transformed into like, or essentially this, and to an extent, I think the fruit of these things these can be merged into a database where they're something. I don't know what the title is yet. Active questions, I think, is the better title right now.
Me too.
That there's something that we can essentially create a list of them and then tag them and add a few other descriptors or relate them to other stuff. Like as we probably know by now, this thing people is relate. Like anytime you see an arrow like this in Notion, it means this is tied to another database. So like we could easily, I don't know if I have anything else in here in this particular one, but like these are older ones. But there will eventually be another database that's specific to the project, where we put, for lack of better terminology right now, this sort of active questions that are, I feel like I want to give them kind of like an ID number, just to like reference them more easily. And I don't know if it's just going to be like CIP number 1, and then a long title of this, or like all in the title. I don't know, but that's for me. That's something I could sort out. I think that will be good, and make it a little more functionally easy for us. Oops. So that's something that I want to work on. Hold on, I have something in my eye suddenly.
Also, instead of doing a database, I know it's possible to just make sub pages, like inactive questions. We could have like a table of contents and have text like how it is now, but then have each question be a sub page.
Mm-hmm.
That could be good.
Yeah, that's true, and it would essentially be, you can interchange at that point if something is its own page or a stub in a database in a lot of ways. It's just what would be better for like some relational stuff, and I don't know what's going to be the best thing for that, but I think that's a valid point. Either one will be tenable. Yeah, I do want to also. I knew there was something I was missing, but the glossary, the 2 glossaries, and almost having. This is something that's coming up right now in like plot twisters, even though plot twisters is sort of on a break. Having like a Rosetta Stone between them, or at least sort of a something. It'd be wonderful if we could make like a really nice visualization of some of this stuff at some point down the road, or like cognitive atlas kind of stuff, where there's sort of, not just the one or the other, but the relation between them would be amazing. But for the time being, making it these making these glossaries will be good. Yeah, and then I can flesh this out a bit more later. Yeah, okay. This is like really messy project manager work, so I appreciate the time to go through it here. And then this outputs thing will be good too. Anything else? Let me go back to your notes here. So Amanda said this stuff. Just linking back and forth, single page, perhaps this 2-way connection. Okay, it looks like we covered most of what you said. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention on that?
No, I don't think so. I think I've settled on each question having its own stub.
Yeah,
would be the best way. In my head, that's like has the potential to get cluttered, but I guess that'll be the case with. That's the case with any of this.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, my to be transparent, like my project management thought is like, how do we? It's kind of separating the wheat from the chaff kind of thing. Like, what's the structure we need to keep stuff moving forward versus all the little stuff that the twirly birds, as Bradly and I've said for years now, like those things are important, but like putting effort into trying to structure that is not the way to go. So it's sort of like, what's the right use of not just like unlimited resources, but like of project management effort in general. Oof. Every time I say this, I hear I have this like slight cringe because of something that happened at a workplace environment recently, where like the main chief of operations is like, yeah, we don't need project management. That's a stupid thing to do. You just need to just talk to everybody all the time. And it's like, yeah, like that's great when like you're on top and you see everything and you're calling the shots. But like not for other people who have to come into this mess and look at it. Like there has to be something. Anyway, I digress. So, I'll do this here. Just quickly. Oh, also like a general task board, so I'm not writing this in the pages would be good. We talked about it before. I think that's most of what we just said. Great. Cool. All right. I think that's most of the project management stuff. I guess I'll take one moment. I know we kind of talked about this last time with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loosely being related to potential papers we want to write, as it has been, and looking, this may change obviously, but kind of these a lot of these basically being kind of survey or review papers or very low level on the pyramid, contextual. We have this glossary project, which is an ongoing, meta information project in a way. And we have a couple here that aren't quite fleshed out or put into there yet. And then Q1 was kind of a reference to the active cues. Like that's kind of what I put there here in the sense. And then we had tip of the pyramid, as Amanda said earlier, and this other one here, which is kind of about Neocybernetic second order stuff. I actually don't remember at all what the second paper was about. Did we write that anywhere? I don't know. I know well, I don't think that diagram was too much about it actually. Was it? But do we remember what two theory building paper?
Did you have your list? I think it's on the other list.
Was it this one?
I think that's I think that's when we were talking about how the two.
Oh, here.
Yeah, I think it's 1 and 2 there. So, we were talking about how those two questions kind of go hand in hand. Like, what is a neo-cybernetic philosophy of mind? What could that mean? Why should we think it's even a thing? And then is Fuchs an example of that?
Yeah.
Where'd my thing go? There we go. Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I just didn't write that for some reason. I'll do that now. So. Okay. Cool. And so I guess I wanted to say, do we have any other things, granted what we have in both like active questions and potential papers to write and all that stuff, is there anything we want to put on this speculative tentative pyramid for the time being before we kind of move on, I guess? I don't expect there to be anything. I just want to mention it. Okay. With that being said, I think as of last week, our only major deep dive goal was to go over the paper and also potentially the method stuff. But we can start with the paper, I suppose, or the chapter, as it were.
I thought the chapter was a nice short version of On Becoming Aware. And they say in a footnote that like, this is just like a preview of what will eventually be On Becoming Aware. In the first note. And then also in that first note, they say, for more on our views on the question of methodology, the reader should consult Varela and Shear 99, which I think is called The View from Within. I guess I can check my PDFs right now. But that could be a good source of readings for us. Yeah, it's called The View from Within, First Person Approaches to the Study of Consciousness. So it kind of sounds like required reading.
Here we go. That's what I'm looking for. All right. Where was that one? Was that the notes at the bottom, you said?
Note number 1, they say this text is adapted from, On Becoming Aware, not out yet. And then they reference Varela and Scheer.
Nice. Did that? I don't know what that is. Oh.
No, it's
Not right.
it's sorry, I just lost it. The View from Within, I'm pretty sure. It's a collection.
Okay. Yeah, sounds relevant. Wow, that's a statement. Aristotelian science. Interesting. Yeah, that sounds like it should at least be an annotated bibliography entry. I'll just slide it in there for the time being.
But one thing I liked about this paper that I typed in the notes was their reliance on certain embodied metaphors. I thought that was interesting, like grasping and letting go, holding. I just thought that was really neat. Also, the use of like dynamic systems theory kinds of descriptions, like a tractor at one point. And it was all kind of described as like motion through a space.
Oh, that's great. I'm not going to attempt to share my own notes, but like as we go through the paper, I'll mention some of my own stuff, and I'll just like refer them on the screen if I get there. Because there was a few things that I wanted to get at, or even just ask you about. Yeah, awareness, epoche, yeah, and this glossary would be the descriptive glossary of other people's stuff.
Yeah, I made one for aware.
Okay. Yeah, this one here, I look like, yeah, okay. I will, that'll be good. Yeah, okay, I should make the template. Oh, yeah, you've done it. Or, I forget we did it before, but you have it here, that's great. That's good.
Oh yeah, so the methods for database and terms for glossary, that was in like the annotated bibliography template already. I didn't do that. So
good.
Maybe that means there are two templates right now. If there's one that just has the box questions and one that just has the other ones. It doesn't matter.
I think this template is specific to reference materials. Yeah, because it's under reference materials and the annotated bibliography, which is a view of the reference materials. But like at this view in particular, interesting. Because if you go to this view, yeah. Whereas if you go to like this view. Oh, nope, I'm in the wrong.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Okay. Because people typically won't be coming to this. This is like straight up all of our reference materials ever. Well,
I see.
in the last year. Yeah. Just so people can kind of this reference materials is like the macro ideally anything that's an external reference to the lab should be here. Like that isn't something we've made, should fit under here, both in the name and then people are also in that category if you want to like write an author here. But because I think this is just predated, that template comes from there. But I can modify. I'll dovetail. I'll just do it now, actually. Oops. Where is it? Huh. Interesting. That appears to be the same one. Yeah, because I remember, like, I set up this somewhere. Where did it come? Maybe I just copy and pasted it or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'll sort that out later. Yeah, I guess I'll just scroll through this. Awareness, epoche. I'm just going to tag myself in this. Yeah. Okay. Philosophical commitment, self-reflective logic. Is that what that was? Or self-referencing, I suppose. It's going to be between stuff. A lot of loop stuff.
I'm not sure what I meant by self-reference logic. I actually went through my notes again and just erased that. I put a different version of my scribbled notes in the Notion page, I think.
Well, was this here something of an active knowing?
Defense of like an active knowing as being different from just like know that.
Okay.
And its usefulness as a like means of investigation. Just like basically a defense of, having a first personal methodology at all.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Oops. Just here, whatever. Yeah. So the first part of the paper, he's kind of she is setting up. The stuff here. In a word, it's a praxis. What do they mean by praxis here specifically? Like, it's characterized by the way it works, right?
Yeah, by like the way it's done. It's like it's an action.
I'm gonna write this here for myself. Phenomenology reduction. Basically going through all this stuff I've been becoming aware that we're familiar with, the different stages, suspension, and so on. All right. Notes here. Does the epoche? It's not an epoche because the tilde will be the other way. Or an epoche.
Brian said epoche once, and I like that, but I don't know if it's right.
I think it sounds cooler, but I don't think it is. It'd be like a poche as opposed to epoche. Because I think that's it. Anyway, yeah, impulse, starting impulse, all this stuff here. The three components of it. What was this one? Movement through
transparency, like in the way Fuchs uses the word. So by that I meant like making certain things opaque that were previously transparent, like making certain things like the object of attention or perception, whereas before they were something you were seeing through or seeing with. So I think that is more clear later in the paper, where they say on page 131 in the middle, they describe becoming aware as the shift between content and the mental act underlying that content. So that seems to me like you're making the mental act, which was previously transparent, into something opaque, into something that is like the object of your attention.
And I see you kind of mentioned this a little bit here on your notes. I'll get to that in a second. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Calculus of self-referencing. Any? I kind of wanted to ask more about that, or just you mentioned because like it's kind of.
I think Varela uses that Gordian knot analogy in calculus of self-reference. I think.
Oh, okay.
But even if not explicitly, he kind of talks about it. But he talks about self-reference as though there is a kind of puzzle to it. And then I thought it was interesting that this paper about becoming aware was perhaps really closely connected to Varela's paper that's more like, that's logic. Oh, that must have been what my note at the top meant. Like self-reference logic from calculus of self-reference. I think it would be interesting to see what the two papers kind of could say to each other, because on the surface they're pretty different. Like one is really mathy, and then this one is not at all. But they're kind of about the same thing, about like taking your own mental life as the object of your attention. Taking the self as the reference.
Mathematical phenomenology.
Oh yeah, when we were talking about all the different things that, like all the different possible phenomenologies, and how there could be like physio versus neuro versus bio or something. I was like, is this mathematical phenomenology? Made me think of Brian.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure we'll catch up with him one day and throw a bunch of these questions in. Yeah, I think
the change of direction. I appreciate you writing this out here because it was a cool little diagram to see as I was reading it my own self. But I think that's, I like how they're really trying to articulate a lot of these, almost like there's certain choices and there's certain energies behind what, like there's intention to direct attention, but there's also this sort of navigational component they're really trying to kind of isolate. 26 here. And yeah, this here was sort of like controlling. This is where some of the demon talk comes in. And I don't know if you want to say things about it, but I wrote like you know, the sort of in external gatekeeper and internal arranger or systematizer or defragger back in the day. I trying to find where did I put this here. Yeah, this whole paragraph is kind of, I guess, relevant. Anything you want to say about this section? Local extension. I think if there's some issue I may take with them is there's something to me about relaxation. I think some of the interesting stuff, and I don't know if we get into it. I don't know if you wrote about it. I put it in my PDF notes, which aren't showing up here. It's just yours right now. There's something about relaxation and I think you wrote in your notes like soon, like sense of being, or it's like base sense of being, and I wrote like basal affectivity. There's something about all that I want to say more when we get there. Relaxed state is the high energy state.
Oh, I was listening to someone talk about like cellular metabolism, like cell biology, and they said that when the cell, at the cellular level, the relaxed state is the high energy state. So both relaxation and high energy meant something in that context in like cellular metabolism. But I thought that was kind of maybe a nice way to put this, what they're saying here. Like you have to suspend your judgment. You have to like turn off certain cognitive habits. And that's what allows you to be receptive to novelty and to, that's what allows you to become aware.
It's really interesting in this sense, to me, as somebody who, can you message someone? As someone who's like, I have a background in a pseudoscience where someone kind of was inspired by metabolism as a general concept, and they try to make it something called like information metabolism and this way of processing information in a specific way, and kind of kept spinning off of all that stuff into like a theory about stuff. And this, it makes me think of like potential and kinetic energy, because when there's a buildup of potential energy, and I'm talking not necessarily in a cellular biological sense right now, because I think that's a very specific context, but like sort of the difference between there being a lot of potential and a lot of means by which for that potential energy to dissipate, versus there being a lot of energy in the system that's active and not necessarily in a potential, but like an active dispersing or building or like a shifting state. So I don't have an entire thought yet about that, but I think I'll come back to that. And I also, that taken in the context of all the stuff about change of direction and what I was saying previously about like there's like a different energetic flow about it that I don't really know what this meant at all, or what you're referencing. So it's kind of funny that that's an even stronger time to some of the things I was getting at earlier, at least in my own sense of things. Cool. Okay, next. With more talks of loops. I don't know if we want to say anything about loops in general so far. And I've been appreciating thinking about that and seeing your comments, but also thinking about like, where's Fuchs in this? Like, what are his loops? You know?
Right, because you can have the open loop that's like looking for something. Like I feel like it wasn't Fuchs that said this, but like if you're looking for your jacket, you like there's a sense in which you're expecting to see the jacket. I feel like it was Grossberg who was talking this way. Maybe expectation wasn't the right word, but you are, when you're looking for the jacket, you're like imposing the form of the jacket onto the world as you look, something goofy like that. And so that's definitely, that sounds like an open loop, and the jacket would close the loop. But then there's also on the flip side the kind of open loop that would be receptive to whatever is in the world that isn't like imposing like top-down expectations on what's being sensed. So there's like not an ambiguity, but the open isn't specific enough. And so I was trying to work out like, I was trying to translate all this into loop terms, and I was not super successful.
I think exactly what we're talking about is that's something to try to tease out in the project, and I'm curious where I really be interested to read some of this actual work where Judge is talking about all that stuff. But I think the bottom up and top downs there. Also, I forgot about this. I highlighted this before, but I like this being you're mentioning here of continuous and discrete as well. But I think bottom up, top down, continuous and discrete are sort of these like axioms in the project that we're attempting to tease out. Like what's going on with these things?
Right. So what I was trying to get at there was like you can be more or less like receptive to. It seems like maybe you can have more or less successful at just letting go. You could be more or less successful at suspending judgment, letting go, and you can be more or less unsuccessful. I guess your expectations and judgments could be more or less strong, but then it doesn't seem like there's any way for you to have successfully let go, to use their term, and to have because it would be like to have successfully and unsuccessfully suspended your judgment. So that's what I meant by there's a discrete switch on this continuous spectrum. There's like two like it's both continuous, but also you can't be both of those things at once.
And can you repeat some of that again, where you were saying it's easier to go like from the top down, or was it the bottom up? You said I messed that.
Basically,
to like when you're go ahead.
I don't know what like. Well, they talk about how it's challenging to successfully suspend judgment. But I feel like even in the realm of like you having, even if you failed to like successfully let go, your top-down expectations could be stronger or weaker. Like you could be close to being successful at this letting go step. So there's room for like differences in degree there. And maybe on the other side, maybe this isn't true actually. I don't know. But I was thinking maybe you could be more, the more I think about it, the more that sounds like nonsense actually.
Okay.
If you can let go to various degrees.
I think there's actually something really, in my just referencing my own personal experience, other stuff, whatever. What do I feel about that? I feel like there's a discreteness. Oh my God, this is me. There's a discreteness when it comes to when you shifted into the state. Like there's a certain, and I think the authors might say here, oh yeah, and the thing is like when you get to the master level, like they talked about this like training process. A master level, you're more easy to switch between them, you know, and that I think that would play a factor here, like being able to sort of, I don't want to say fake, but like have a lot more accessibility to, I don't know if we want to say transcend or fall into, whichever way you want to say it, a lot more accessibility of the suspended state. Like it's less of a rough divide, less of a harsh thing to get into, and a lot more fluidity about it.
But I think that there's fluidity in crossing over that boundary, but there's still a boundary.
Yeah,
like yeah.
I would agree. And I would say there's a difference. I think mastery, I don't know if they say this or not, I don't think that they do, but maybe they do. I would think mastery would be ease. It's almost like being able to do a preview. Like you're not opening the file, but you're previewing the file to see, okay, this is kind of what it looks like. But still opening the file, going into the state fully where you have disassociation. Because they talk about, someone, was it you or was it them? They specifically used the word impossible somewhere. And I put that in my notes someplace. But it was saying how, see if I can find it here. On page 132, this is basically what I do want to go back to like 127, but for what I was saying, this is what I was basically at. We may say then that phenomenological reduction, etc., all this stuff is all stem from what is not available in normal reflection. They are rooted in nonverbal, pre-reflective, and the antipredictive. Oops, but this amounts to proposing that becoming aware stems from nothing, in the sense that lived experience of which can be reflected is not immediately available.
Yeah, I was kind of confused by that part.
I'm a little bit too. Like, I totally get I totally like this. To me, is very resonates strongly with me. Like there's something that is not. I guess they didn't use the word impossible. Maybe I'm misquoting them. But even like the next page, or this is the kind of the conclusion section anyway. I highlighted this part here. And it's interesting because they say breaking here, not breaking with an E, but breaking as a slowing down. Breaking, it involves in breaking, that is to say, an inhibition of habitual cognitive processes whose activity can completely eclipse the receptive dimension. And there it is, make the reflective act impossible. That's the impossible I was looking for. And I feel like there's something about this that we're trying to tease out.
Yeah, I think that describes why there's like a discrete why there's a difference in kind maybe between being in the bottom up on the bottom up side of the spectrum versus the top down, because the top down is this habitual cognitive process whose activity can completely eclipse the bottom up side. Interesting that can is instead of like does. It seems like it has to, like by definition, it's what gets in the way of the reflective act.
I would love to ask all the authors about like, why did you use each of these words? Why breaking? Why can? Why impossible? Because I don't think those are.
Maybe they mean that the top-down stuff can keep you from even crossing that boundary, can keep you from even successfully doing the gesture of awareness. Like it's obvious that you can't be in both places at once, but maybe what they mean is that if your expectations and judgments are powerful enough, they can keep you from successfully even initiating this mindfulness process. Maybe.
Yeah, I actually really like the term braking in the sense that you can brake to slow down a car, but you have to brake enough to come to a stop. I think that's a nice way to think about it. Like you if you want to go there, you have to do it. But like unless and I'm really trying to wrap my head around the structure of the sentence, because it involves braking, comma. And it's not saying it involves a breaking of an inhibition of habitual. It's like it's a different clause or part of the sentence altogether.
It involves a breaking / an inhibition. That's how I read it.
Yeah, an inhibition of habitual cognitive processes whose activity can completely eclipse the receptive dimension and make it reflective impossible. Yeah, and I think that's basically what you were saying in the sense of there can be so much activity. And I think this is like I think when I think about this, I think it's so weird to really consider this. This is a little bit of an expanded far out comment, I suppose, right now. And I know we're kind of almost at the end of the time here. We have like 14 minutes left. Just about that. I think this phenomenon has two really interesting like angles. And what I'm kind of getting at here is basically like, this is quite annoying. I'm gonna turn off my filter. Sorry. Like this. That's better. I think, and I'm highlighting these two approaches because I think in modernity, I'm really trying to have empathy for what it was like before civilization became what it is. And I'm doing that to try to isolate. I think it's not quite the same as top down and bottom up in the way here, but it's almost like the quieting or the suspension, like what is being suspended from. They can both be either one of these things. Like if you're constantly attuned, even in prehistorical context where there's no language, there's no, you're not in a city, you're not in Boston with constant traffic. There's still this you're still suspending from something, and what is that? There could be a constant external engagement or stress or whatever it is. And I feel like I think it's been eluding me how to say this the right way. Yeah. I might come back to this one. But it has to do with like what is the suspension? What is being suspended from, both in both extremes of what it is that is making the act impossible are, I think they can sort of triangulate a bit about the point of discretion, if that makes sense. Like what is the different feeds into that state? Like you're coming from all these different things to get to the state where there is a suspension. So more about that later. I will try to put this into stuff here as I go through my notes. Okay, this might be, because I have a bunch of stuff on the next page or so. I guess I'll go to 28 and just take it from there because you have stuff too. We have in your notes. This is a bunch of social context, which is kind of related to what I was talking about, I suppose. When I think about it, pragmatic difficulties in this, like Liz talking about confidence, talking about I don't feel like sharing, and that's like a whole like weird social dimension to modernity too. Or kind of what I was saying there a little bit. And then we get to, and I drew a big arrow to this. He said, the feeling of being alive. Yeah, well, jeez, bouncing all over the place here. I'm sorry.
I thought that was...
The feeling of... Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. These techniques commonly make use of the fact that this direction of attention towards apperception partly coincides with attention directed at kinesthetic and proprioceptive sensations. I guess I was wondering, like, why is that generally the case? Like, it does make sense. And my answer to that was, it's so paying attention to the feeling of being alive, or just like bodily dynamics, is a great example of, to use Fuchs's notion of the word transparency, one instance of reducing transparency. So the bodily processes are normally transparent to you, and then when you practice being aware of them, you make what is normally transparent opaque. Opaque being like able to be examined. And so that's like, but I thought that like the becoming aware can like generalize. It's not just bodily stuff that's normally transparent. It's all kinds of mental dynamics, which is why I liked that quote that I mentioned earlier, that it's like the difference between being aware of the content and being aware of the mental, I forget their words. being aware of you being aware of the content. So yeah, I thought it was interesting that, like, yeah, techniques usually appeal to the body, but that's not necessarily because being aware of the body is the end-all be-all. It's because it's a great way to train this practice of making things opaque that are usually transparent, making yourself aware of things that you're normally only like implicitly aware of, or unaware of in their sense of the word aware.
Yeah, my notes, I wrote some notes that were basically like this, and I might be saying kind of the same thing from a different angle. My notes had to do with, and feel free to like, I don't think I'm doing a very good job of writing what you're saying here. So, what's on my mind about this is basically, I wrote basal effectivity, and then I wrote, this is a bit of a side question, like I wrote, okay, what is stillness? And that's kind of not a term by anybody here. Slightly Eckhart Tolle comes to my mind, but that's a little bit, it's sort of Buddhist inspired and like meditative inspired, but, and I kind of know they talk about something like that a little bit down the road, but I feel like I have this sort of question about how, in light of what you just said, like how does stillness, which I don't get to define what that is right now. How does that fit in that? But more so, I think an interesting thing that I wrote is basically our thoughts, and by thoughts I mean kind of up here, the cessation of the spontaneous movement that searches for information, or habitual cognitive processes. That's basically what I mean by thoughts, I suppose. Are thoughts external to stillness or external to basal affectivity? And maybe external is the wrong term. And I think what you were saying is kind of an answer to that. I think what I'm curious about this is sort of when you suspend fully, and I don't quite know how to talk about this in terms of the way the authors have yet. But when you suspend yourself fully and you let go of, now when they say letting go, is that letting, that's in the diagram, the Epoche diagram, not here, is it? It's here. In this diagram, letting go means returning to normal, or letting go of the habitual thoughts and cognitive processes.
Let the latter, letting go of cognitive habits.
So letting go is like, they define this up here. Oh, why is this giving me such a hard time? I don't want to go up. Up. There we go. Okay.
Right, now I'm confused about the difference between suspension and letting go. I get redirection. That's the step where you go from paying attention to the world to paying attention to yourself. And then suspension is the suspension of your habitual cognition. Letting go. Okay, so I guess letting go is like that's like the result of suspending.
Right. So, kind of like the impulse or the inception point, the
conversion, the redirecting the gaze, the shift, and then letting go. Okay, yeah. So this letting go is this. You're let go if it is braked.
Mm-hmm.
If it is breaking. Yeah. Okay. So going all the way back to whatever I was trying to get at. If I'm not even gonna make that. Okay. If you have let go, you've let go. Is it? And I'm trying to think like almost in a Fuchsian sense of things. Is what's being would you feeling alive? Would Fuchs basically come in and say the receptive state of having let go involves, and it's funny because I'm kind of a bit muddled around about the use of transparent and opaque right now. It's almost like what has become transparent, and maybe this is what you were saying, is the external stuff. But also, I feel like, I'm not going to use that term right now. I'm going to use what's my mind specifically, which is if you've let go and you're in the state of stillness, or you're in this receptive state where you're not actively seeking anything, is it the case then, would Fuchs kind of say, this is basically as close to basal affectivity as your conscious mind is going to get, in that you've kind of suspended a lot of the external focus. You've shifted the focus away from the external, from you're kind of suspending from some of the horizontal causality, if you will. You're kind of muting or breaking or lowering the volume on that, and you've made this turn internally. And then basal affectivity is, I don't think he would say, oh, you're experiencing basal affectivity. No, I think it's more, he would say, that's as close as the conscious, experience of your mind is going to get to. As I interpret basal affectivity as deeply like source code kind of stuff. Like it is things through it and built on top of it are manifested later and then become the conscious objects that we think about and interact with. Does that sound right to you, or like how do you feel about that?
That's really interesting. I think that all sounds right. So I definitely think that the shift from external to internal is kind of a shutting off of those horizontal loops. You're like decoupling from the environment, and maybe in a sense you are coupling with bodily dynamics if you're like actively focusing on your breathing, for example. So that's step one, and then step two is the real letting go. So I would be hesitant to say that the body is still like the object of your attention, because you're not supposed to have any object of attention, is my understanding. Once you've let go, you basically what you've let go of is holding any object, even if it's your own breathing, in your attention. Your attention is empty. It's ready to perceive whatever arises. I think I agree that another way to say that would be to say that you are as close to basic consciousness as you can get, if you've first disconnected horizontally, but then in a sense you've also disconnected vertically, meaning like you you're not paying attention to your own thoughts. Your attention is open.
Great. And there's a lot of things I would like to continue this next time. We're already past the top of the hour, but I feel like I think I'm literally gonna try to. I've recorded this in the background as usual. I think I'm gonna try to like copy this conversation and almost like play with it or summarize it to continue next time, because this here I wrote a bunch of notes in the margin here, and I'm not gonna get into it now just because of timing and everything else. But I think there's something here. And I think there's some really fun things to think about as a slight preview. Oh, does this say receiving, or what does this one say here? Do you know on the left?
Open loop looking to open loop open loop receiving. Yeah.
Okay.
They say letting go and then letting come.
You do what you got to do. Yeah, I really liked this thing about it. It meant involved action, and I'm going to say more about it next time. The teaser of being, and kind of why I made this distinction about prehistorical not enough signal versus modern one. Well, like there's an element of I'm fascinated with the illusion of stillness. Because it's not always as still as it seems to be. So that'll be my teaser for next time. Any final comments? I know we're well over time right now, so to be continued.
Yeah, look forward to next time.
Yeah.
I'll continue next time. Anything we want to try to read or like mention reading, or just maybe we'll mention that in Slack. I'm going to decide it now.
You know what could be good is maybe looking at on becoming aware for. First of all, for maybe some context for this to help our conversation, but also then maybe we can add to that annotated bibliography stub as well. Because right now I think it's empty, and not because we haven't written or thought about it, because we've spent plenty of time on that book. But maybe we add to our to-do list to actually fill out the page.
Okay, that sounds good. And I'm going to try to do a bunch of the party minutes that I said earlier. I'll leave it at that. Anything you want to say, Bradley, before we're out?
No, I think we're done. That was good conversation.
All right. Good stuff, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Bye.
you.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Bye.